Hi, all. Welcome to Wealth Builder Movement. I am so happy that you guys are joining us tonight. I have a bit of bad news. Unfortunately, Angel Rich couldn't make it to us tonight. We know in COVID times that, things do change. But we hope to have her on for another episode. On the good news, though, we have a wonderful replay that we're going to be doing for you. But before we cut to that, I wanted to give you guys just a few quick tips on financial literacy straight from Angel Rich. One tip is when you think about your credit and you're trying to balance what to pay in terms of debt, what to pay off, and what not to pay off, one thing to consider is whether it is a private loan or whether it's a federal loan. Private loans actually fall off your credit report in 7 years. So consider that when you're thinking about which one you're going to pay off first and how it'll affect your credit. Another quick tip is when you are trying to get your credit improved, what you can actually do is set up an account, a credit card account, and make sure that you pay down that credit card as you're using it. So again, you're building credit, but you're really using it more as a bank card than a credit card, but it goes on your report as such. Another thing, credit tip to also be aware of is that many times people just get so overwhelmed with student loans that they don't realize that they can actually negotiate those student loans down. You are not meant to spend the rest of your life in debt. So always go for the negotiation tactic. Something is better than nothing. And do not forget that they are always willing to negotiate with you to get that. They will even get it down 20 or 30%. Moving outside of credit and just talking about general financial literacy, keep in mind that financial literacy is not just about budgeting. It's not just about credit. It's not just about the basics of debt. It's also about group economics. In the Black and Brown community, we need to do this much more. In other words, make sure that you're buying from Black businesses, that you're working with Black consultants if you own a business, that you're spending your dollars in the Black community. Because just as important as your personal wealth is, the group wealth is actually even more important because that ties back into your personal wealth. Those are some quick tips. We're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with some legacy building tactics, a nice, wonderful replay from Conrad Daniels that we had previously, and we certainly hope to see you guys back again. Enjoy.
Welcome to Life Development Corporation. We develop lives by supporting the unsupported and building a brighter future for all. Founded by Reverend Timothy Finley Jr., Life Development Corporation focuses on the physical wellness, social health, intellectual education, financial stability, and political engagement of the most underserved in our communities. We support the hungry with food access initiatives like Blessings in a Basket and Thanksgiving food drives. And we also provide free medical services and basic needs to overlooked populations, as well as youth and young adults and adult educational training. We truly want to see everyone reach their highest level in life and be prepared for whatever career they choose. Because after all, everyone deserves an opportunity to grow and develop. That's why we focus on social justice, financial empowerment, and political engagement. Join us. We need your support. We can't do it alone, and we want you to help us support the unsupported.
My individual family and legacy started in the Philippines, where I was born. Um, wasn't really high. It was, it's very rare because I do belong to the U of L Family Business Center, and it doesn't take long to just see that there's no generational wealth for minorities because of our history in America. We just weren't able to participate. We weren't able to, own certain land, get certain loans. So even house ownership, which most middle class Americans were able to pass down from generation, really didn't happen with most minorities. So I just look at I guess my role in where I am is just being a good ambassador of what I've been giving, growing that, and leaving something to the third generation that they can hopefully grow and not mess up. However, the statistics show that the third generation is the entitled generation, and they don't see the struggle of the founders. All they see are the benefits. So, we've had to do quite a bit of, I guess, family business governance to create a constitution that really outlines our expectations of the third generation. And what they decide to do with it, they decide to do with it.
And of course, our goal, we want our kids to follow whatever path that they want, right? If that's with HJI, great. If that is with, my practice of dermatology, that is great too. But at the end of the day, we want them to study hard, get as much education as they can, follow what they want to do, be disciplined in their young life and their spending and their choices, be disciplined with what God willing we're able to lead them, and then pull other people along with them.
One thing our kids won't be able to say is that they didn't have this. That's what we talk about, all the time. How do we put ourselves in the best possible position to do whatever you want to do, whether it's give back to the community, volunteer time, talent, whatever it is, you're going to have something. What you do with it,
right?
Well, hopefully it's good.
And unlike our parents, I will tell my kids, you don't have a job. Like all of this, I am doing this. And if you want this type of car and if you want this type of house, you have to go to school and you have to make some money. Like I don't remember my mom saying in those words that you have to, if you want this, you want this. Like I feel like this generation, I don't know if they're workers. It's the question mark is there. But I want my children to know that you have to work equally as hard, at least as I did, to expect the things that I have. So you're not just gonna coast on through, and because they are coming at this as a third generation, and my parents have worked hard to build a company for them, and I'm working hard. He's working hard. So they really will have a little nest egg, this third generation. But I need for them to know it's not there for you immediately. You've got to go to school and you've got to work and prove that you're responsible enough to handle what's been given to you. Because I am I don't know. They're gonna be blessed. You know, they're gonna be blessed. And I just hope that they realize it. And so, like my mom did, she really hammered in God in the center, and God is everything, and it can be gone. We're trying to do that with our kids, because I think if God is the center and you realize where everything else flows from, no matter how much money you have or what you become, that'll just, hold you tight, and money is, fleeting, really, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they do.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are here with Conrad Daniels and Martha Puche. You just saw this phenomenal video, the story of Conrad and his wife, Dr. Natalie Houston Daniels, talking about wealth in their family. And Martha Puche is here to give us a little bit of financial advice about how we can really prepare strongly for legacy wealth. So, Conrad, I want to start with you, because we just saw this phenomenal video. We just heard the story about, you and your wife, kind of your upbringing, how you got together in Georgia Tech, bonding over sports, how you kind of had a vision for your family, but also a little bit of, concern about how do you raise the kind of that next third generation to keep the wealth and keep it going. So I wanted to start with a question for you. So you guys have very different backgrounds. You on one hand, you come from mom and dad, both, grew up without a father figure. And then Dr. Houston Daniels kind of grows up in, kind of maybe stereotypical nuclear family, even more so, right? Family business and everything that's going on there. As a collective family now, can you talk about how that dynamic plays out and how you're able to leverage your differences to really create wealth for your family together, those kind of different perspectives that have joined?
Well, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be a part of the Wealth Builder movement. And, you don't know until you're exposed to something where on the spectrum you are. I figured, hey, I'm one of the first people. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. My sister did go to college before me, but I was the first one to graduate from college. And for a lot of people, that's the goal. The goal is to get a degree. Now it's to make some financial, means, more than, both of my parents together ever made coming out of college. So it wasn't until, I'm married into this family where you had great grandparents that finished college and had degrees and graduate degrees. I quickly realized it was humbling. It was humbling. I thought I was good. It was humbling, so much so that it was positive pressure to continue my education. So I went back, I got my MBA, and from there, you quickly realize the opportunities that you thought you had. You had no idea. Now that you're in a different place. So when I think back over the time, I'm just so grateful and for the opportunity to be exposed to a family that really valued education, really valued faith, really valued community. I feel like sometimes I was just selfish because I was never exposed to the things that you're supposed to do along the way. I get some success and I feel like I'm good. It didn't even think about, it didn't occur to me that I need to bring someone else with me until I got exposed to it. So looking back, I felt a little selfish. Now I have I think a great foundation to really help, others. Yeah.
So one thing that we talked about during kind of that filming of that interview that you and Dr. Houston Daniels did was this concept of, trying to raise your kids to hold on to the wealth that you've amassed, but then on the flip side, trying to raise your parents to not bring on the debt of the wealth against the wealth that you're trying to build. And so you kind of have this, always have this 3-generation dynamic, and no matter what family. So can you speak specifically to kind of what you hope to leave to your kids in terms of wealth, like what wisdom, what advice you hope to leave to them? Maybe realistically, what's your fears, right?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, I think we want to make sure they understand that this is mom and dad's wealth that we've created, and you have to create your own path. Now, you're going to have a little bit more resources to be able to choose. However, it's up to you. They see what we did, and I think they're just exposed to, okay, I just got to make sure I'm doing the right thing, and there's going to be an opportunity there. They're going to have a leg up on a lot of us, a lot of the minority community, unfortunately. However, I think they're also going to understand what their role will be in bringing equality, to that. We always talk about making sure that that you are an ambassador with what you've been given. So that foundation of, faith, education, community, I think it's ingrained in them, when I think about what can we do given where we are to make sure that they don't feel entitled, being that 3rd generation, we have gone so far as in our family business, we have a family constitution.
Okay, so tell me about that. Because a lot of times people have family business, and it just seems like, why would I want to do this? But you've actually put legal structure behind that.
Yeah, it doesn't take long to look at the statistics of why family businesses fail. And they fail a lot of times because that 3rd and 4th generation, they don't see the struggle of the founders. See, we see it. We're the 1 generation underneath them. So we have a different perspective on that. So it was important for us to make sure that we make sure that that generational wealth gap doesn't widen with our family, and that we continue that on. So, when we talk about what's in our family constitution, we talk about how we hire family, the minimums that you have to be a part of this family business, because we want this family business to not be the default, but we want the best of the family to be like, I want to be a part of that, so we talk about addiction, what happens when a family gets into addiction. We talk about what happens when a family member wants to be an entrepreneur, and they got to come up with a business plan. They've got to talk to the family council. So we try to address all of the things that we have seen being affiliated with the U of L Family Business Center. All of those things that we know are barriers or challenges, we try to at least create a constitution that the kids can look at and say, okay, here's how we handle this. Here's how we handle this. Here's how we handle this. And we think it's going to be what's best for them now when they're in leadership roles, and we go through generational succession planning for that 3rd generation. They can decide what to keep and what to get rid of. However, we wanted to make sure that they at least have a good foundation.
So Martha, that's a good segue to you, because here Condra's talking about a very solid, like a family contract. It goes even down to, look, if somebody gets addicted, here's how this is going to roll out, because all that touches wealth. What are some things that, that you advise families to do to really protect the family wealth, but also to grow the family wealth, especially if they're starting, maybe this is the 1st generation of wealth building?
And again, thank you for having us here today. And I love the fact that he's sharing this with his kids, leading by example. I love that. Hey, that's a great way to do it. But there is so many ways that you can actually leave generational wealth. For example, something that I recommend families to do is sometimes we leave life insurance in the back burner. We don't consider the benefits that these can provide along with other products. For example, estate planning, having a will and a trust in place. Those are tools that will and a trust, they don't just build wealth, but is in order to preserve that wealth that families have been building for such a long time. You want to make sure it stays within the family, and that you're going to be able to pass it from generation to generation. So that would be a good way for families to have a good setup, and also consult with a professional. Sometimes families are scared of approaching because maybe going to be too expensive, maybe. But hey, having that guidance from someone that will help them.
Dr. Jose Fernandez, who's a professor of economics at the University of Louisville, does this wonderful talk where he talks about how Black and brown families have a very limited knowledge about, like, a misunderstanding about life insurance policies.
Yes.
And I know, Martha, that you have talked to certain families and researched certain programs where, even through a church environment, they have gone to encourage people, hey, who's the oldest person in your family?
Mm-hmm.
And let's think about protecting that individual in a way that when they pass on, it builds wealth. I think for a lot of people that might seem like, am I doing a death lottery? But can you speak to that? Like, when you talk to individuals, when you're out there, like, what are some of the kind of misconceptions about life insurance? Why is it that it's so, some people are so hesitant to get into a policy?
And yeah, it feels sometimes like it's a taboo. Right, it's hard to tell. Nobody families want to think about when they die. Obviously, who wants to think about when that time comes? But it's a way for you to prepare not only yourself, but leave something behind for your family. And like you mentioned, yeah, that's another way. Not only to protect yourself, so your family can get that death benefit, but also you can protect someone else. For example, your parents. It's not bad that you can do that, and you can make yourself the beneficiary of that account. Or a family come together, protect the older individual in the family, so you can start creating that generational wealth. Not only that, that will start bringing awareness within the whole family, how to have the right protection, how to leave something behind as a family legacy. Because if you haven't built your own wealth, you by providing these, you can actually get ahead of the game from leaving something behind.
Wow. What are some other things outside of life insurance policies, some other ways that, let's say, which is in many cases my own personal situation where, I didn't have an inheritance. My parents, my sorry dad, they have more debt than, than maybe that's the inheritance than not. So, what can you do when you feel like you want to build for the future, you want to start, but a lot of times in our families, we don't get the luxury of starting from zero, right? We don't want to just leave, just say, oh, I just write off our parents and their debt. And so what can we do? Like, you're just starting from scratch, and you're just like, look, how do I get going?
Yeah, and there's so many options out there. Just family, the lack of knowledge, the lack of information that we have in our community, Black and brown community. We don't have, there's a lot of resources that many families can, hey, you can start something small, even $50, even $13 that can make a big change. Maybe a term policy, or there's mutual funds, even to start something for your kids' college education. Something huge. You know what impact that might have in your kids? Something that to have that savings, that protection. So there's so many different ways for you to start from scratch, and the doors are open. The doors are open now for everyone in our community that they can actually access these resources. And sometimes they think because they're going to charge them, it's too expensive, or sometimes it's not a financial priority to have their stuff in place.
I think it's one of the hardest things. You talk about parenting your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I just listened to a webinar a couple of weeks back, it's the hardest conversation to have right now with my parents is what happens when mom, you pass, or dad, you pass, and just to be able to just sit down and just say, let's just talk, let's walk through this. They don't want to do it. You know, it's hard, it's difficult, you know, no one wants to talk about, or, you know, we have this thing, you can't manage from the grave, right? So you got to get it all out. So then we can do something with it.
And I agree, because it was hard for us as a family, because we're all in business together as well, and bringing this up to our parents, not only for when they die, but now during retirement. Us as their kids, guiding them through how to have that retirement, how to be set for retirement, it was hard, because they're like, oh, I already know. And bringing life insurance for when they die is like, well, my dad was like, well, that's not gonna be my problem, you know. That's your problem when I die. And I'm like, but dad,
that right there.
that's the first reaction he had with us. And I'm like, but dad, you know, you still need to, you cannot leave that burden on us. I mean, it's not a burden, obviously we have to bury our parents, but
why be a burden when it could be a benefit to the next generation of ways to flip the situation? So I have a question. How do you guys, Conrad, I'm going to start with you. How do you navigate, because you have this excellent contract for your family, which I'm going to ask you for later, so I can give it to my family. But was everybody on board with that? Was everybody just so business minded, or were there some difficult conversations that you had to have to say, let's put a legal framework to our family? Because people don't even like prenups, and you're saying, here's a contract to our family.
Yeah, you know, we're big believers in you can't fix what you can't confront. So transparency, some people like to say it, few people live it. So in my first family business meeting, I laid down some ground rules, and you know, one of the most important ones was, we don't want you leaving this meeting and having pillow talk with your, you know, with your spouse about what you should have said and what you were gonna do when we were all in the meeting together. So you know, you have to tackle these things head on. I mean, we talked about, you know, now I'm an in-law and I'm asked to lead and grateful, you know, for the opportunity to lead this family enterprise. However, one of the first things that we set up, you know, employee contracts and things like that. So anything that can go wrong, you try to think about it and not leave it up to debate. So it's there. It's in black and white. You all agree to it or you don't agree to it until you agree to it.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be some give and take there. So, you know, just like in business, no one wants to talk about exit strategy.
Yeah.
But you got to talk about the exit strategy, right? It's one of those uncomfortable conversations that you have to be real with yourself.
You are going to exit both
it
business
is
and this world.
yes.
Right. So, yes, that's the approach.
Wow. So, Mark, I have a question for you, and there's a lot of viewers that we have coming from the Latino community that, you know, have family members going back generations that not originate here. Many of us haven't originated here in the United States either. That's another conversation, but maybe a little bit more sooner than we have. You know, your family originally comes from Colombia, I believe, right?
Yes.
So, what is that conversation like when they're basically have a memory of a totally different economy, a totally different system, you know, a political system that's different, an economic system? How do you have those conversations when certain generations may have not even been born to have a context for that? I think a lot of people are trying to have those conversations, but how do you do that successfully from your perspective?
Yeah, and that's what we've been working on with our Spanish community. I'm a co-host of Escuela de Finanzas, School of Finance, and we're bringing this knowledge for everyone in the community, in the Spanish community. It's huge because, like you mentioned, we come from a whole total different system, right? And coming to a country that obviously a whole total, this is a system that manage here the benefits that the work offer, 401k, the protection to the family. It's hard, and by having more education, by having more knowledge, putting it out there, especially now with social media. I mean, we're here, right? And we're able to communicate with a lot of families out there. This is the way to go to be able to educate our families, and we have been able to reach a lot of families, and they can reach out to us, open questions, and we are just giving guidance. I mean, it's only so much we can do, and whoever wants to take the guidance, we're always here to help.
And you guys offer entirely Spanish-speaking broadcast hours, I believe weekly.
Weekly.
Talk about that. And
Every Thursday at 6:30, we have a weekly Spanish broadcast on Facebook Live, where we bring different topics in regards to personal finance. How does the system works now with the pandemic? What is family doing? What should they be doing? Because sometimes it's like, I got the stimulus check. What do I do with it now? Or business owners, what the loans, PPP loans, what can they do? So in the Spanish community, we have a lot of business owners that are in the Spanish community, and they need to know as well. And we've been working with a lot of them to give them the help and the guidance that they need to be able to actually help their employees as well. So
wow, that's amazing. So another piece I think that's really critical to building this generational wealth, this legacy wealth, is everybody being on the same wavelength in terms of the fact that by definition generational, you have like almost a baton that you have to pass on to the next. And if you don't pass that baton on, then it gets lost in one generation. I think sometimes we think about, quote unquote, wealthy, and I use that term in quotation marks because wealth really goes beyond just what we think of rich, right? We think about that, and it's this thought that maybe you could never lose it. Now, I know that we experience in our communities, in the Black and Brown community, sometimes the parents or grandparents will have a really great piece of real estate property, but the kids, people my generation is like, well, I don't want to live in that neighborhood. So they kind of just like let it go. In other cases, you have properties where maybe there's, taxes is the only thing that needs to be paid on it. And there's not enough education about, the value and just paying off those taxes and holding on to that property in case, because not in case, that community will turn over. How have you dealt with some of those things?
A lot of estate planning. That's what the main thing that we always talk about. Have everything in place. Have a will, a trust, work with someone that is going to be able, attorneys that are always there helping, giving them that guidance. For example, what's going to happen to a property when that person is no longer here? Who's going to take care of it? Who's going to continue paying for it? The problem is that because they don't have a estate plan, that's why there's so much foreclosure houses, because the family members cannot continue making those payments. So having something set in place, but everything goes in how are you managing your personal finances? Where are you at right now? Where do you want to get? So having that conversation, like Conrad here, hey, with the whole family, where are we at in the short term? Where are we going to get? In a midterm, where? And even in the long term, where are we going to get? How are we going to get to that level? And leaving everything step by step in place, that's the best way to go.
Wow.
I also think that education right there shouldn't be new to the Black and Brown community. However it is. My grandmother, because of Jim Crow laws, couldn't even get a loan for her house that she lived in for 50 years and paid rent until she died. So it's unfortunate that we're having to educate that. However, our generation has to figure out a way to break the cycle through education, because we are in better positions. We got a long way to go. There's this whole equity piece that we have to figure out as a country, and we're confronting it right now, and we're really going to see what this is going to look like, in the next 6 months. However, thank you, because we tend to skip over some of that education because we take it for granted that it's always been available. The generational wealth, leaving homes to kids, that's something that a lot of us are facing for the first time.
Yeah, and another thing, if you don't have that in place, the government can step in. You don't know what's going to happen to the house. Everything that you have worked for so many years might be gone. And that's something that a lot of families have gone through. And like Conrad mentioned, it's been here for the longest time.
Yeah.
Why are we just not learning about it? So either way, we still continue sharing our information and bring education.
Wow.
That's the main thing that our goals is for everyone from all walks of life. No, it doesn't matter who it is. Everybody needs it.
Listen, wow. So one piece of advice, let's start with Martha, for families to build legacy wealth.
Yeah, reach out to the community, get with the right persons, and get more knowledge, get educated. There's so many good resources, a lot of help now in the community that everybody, there's some even free education, free courses, free advice. If you want to sit down with a financial professional, hey, who can you sit with that can give you free advice in regards to your personal finances? And that's the first step families should take.
Conrad, any advice for people wanting to build legacy wealth for their families?
I mean, it all starts with your faith in God, making sure you're grounded. It all starts there. From there, you can build upon, the different levels. But I think it starts there, and then it grows into making sure that as a family unit, education is the one thing that people can't take away from you. Because they can take away a lot. But education is one thing they can.
Yeah. That's true. And Martha, did you want to add something?
No, and I wanted to say, I have a couple of my page. You can go into marthapucha.com or buildfinancialwealth.com to get more information in how to get started. If you're starting from scratch, you don't know where to go, you can get into those pages and you can find information there.
Oh, that's really great. Before we leave, though, because we still have a little bit more time, I did want to give you a moment. You keep mentioning the Family Business Center. And what is that for our viewers? What is a Family Business Center? Is that something that's local here? Is that something that's national? And what do they do at the Family Business Center?
Yeah, so the one that we're affiliated with, it's a local, it's the U of L Family Business Center. I think there's over 100 families here. We just got a brand new executive director, Dr. Botero, and she's been here for about 5 months. And it's an opportunity for family businesses to succeed. So they bring in different guest speakers from all over, huge family conglomerates. How did they pass on generational wealth? Fifth generations, first to second, all the pitfalls, because the statistics are pretty bad, and then when you look at minority businesses, we just haven't had the opportunities to pass on generational wealth. So there's not a lot of representation there. I told the sisters we're gonna get you guys involved, because we need to make this a little bit more diverse. However, it's been a really good opportunity for them to get to understand what does it mean to have a family business council, what does it mean to have a family constitution, what does it mean to have certain rules in place when you're hiring family members. So yeah, it's been a really good opportunity and introduction into this whole generational wealth.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you guys both for joining us. We're going to be moving on to our next one, which is going to be on kind of the relationship building side, social capital piece of wealth. And so we are so happy to have you. And please, we'll do more with you in the future.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, guys. We'll be our next segment.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, the Community Foundation of Louisville, and Life Development Corporation, along with Men's Marketing Inc. and the National Black MBA Association Kentucky chapter.